How do you become your children's hero? In this video, I'm going to give you a tip and I'm going to explain exactly how you can do that and just improve your connection with your children. So even in the Bible, it's very descriptive, okay? And I think most people know 2 out of 5 of these things. They naturally, instinctively know how to protect. Even if you don't know how to fight, when you have kids, you want to protect them. Yes or no? Tell me if I'm right. So you protect, you provide. Your instinct is to provide a home, a house, food. You just instinct. But these are the other 3, okay, which is maybe not talked about as much. So you protect, you provide, but the priest, the king, and the prophet, okay, they're the things that I'm not going to talk about all those things, but I'm gonna tell you one thing in a minute that you can do with your children that will actually start to get a feel for those other areas, because I'm sure you know how to protect and provide. This is the next level, I believe, of fatherhood. So if you're anything like me, you've had busy seasons in your life. And, I remember, I've got 7 children. Okay? My wife and I have 7 children. Very fortunate to fall in love at a young age and, my wife's just an amazing baby maker, okay? An amazing mother. I always say, a lot of young men I coach, I say to them, so how many kids you want to have? And they say, I don't know. I say, hey, man, don't say that. Pick a number. You could end up with 7. I'm joking, but that's the truth. All right. I've heard people say, maybe you've heard people say, oh, my father did do this or he didn't do that, or he was there but he wasn't present, okay? There wasn't the connection. So in this video, man, I'm going to give you some tips so you'll be able to really focus on that connection and what your children actually need, okay? So as I was saying, I remember there was a very busy season in my life. And where, I'd done some great things in sport, obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but when you're a fighter, man, you got to be all in. Like anything to be successful, you must be all in and consumed with what you're doing. I realized once you start having kids, you realize, man, this is very dangerous. I've known people that have passed away after a fight. Like you can get brain damage. It's dangerous, So you start thinking a bit, I started thinking a bit different when I started having kids, but although I fought up until I had 4 kids at the time. When I finished fighting, I've got 7 now. But then once I, maybe you don't know my story. When I finished as a fighter, I promised, even throughout my 20s, I remember at a mate's gravesite, and I created an oath that I was only ever going to do what I love doing. Life is too short, man. I'm going, if I don't love what I'm doing, if my heart is not fully engaged in it, I'm not doing it. That was an oath that I made. And that's been brilliant for me. I'm not saying it's been easy, but whatever I've done, I've been fully engaged in it. And of course, when I finished fighting, I ended up fighting a world title eliminator. Didn't work out. I lost it. And man, I invested everything, almost everything into, that career. And, I got to earn some money. I got to make some things happen. I was very fortunate. I was able to buy some real estate before, so I had money when I was going through it, when I was boxing. But then I sold a couple bits of real estate. I got to get the show back on the road again. And I remember for that. Well, if I look back now, I was it was probably about 10, 11 years. I was really busy. I didn't know how busy I was. Okay, it was like I had a boxing gym and running events every other month, like big events, and everywhere we went, we were talking boxing, or like I didn't realize that for me, I always wanted my kids to be involved in whatever I do, so that's why I thought it was okay, it was good, which it was. They're very they are on mission, those children now. Goodness me, they're all a bit like me, unemployable entrepreneurs. If it's been done before, they're not interested. Let's do something amazing. They've inherited some of their dad's traits, which is some of the good ones and some of the not so good ones, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you're the same. But with that busy period, I realised later, okay, that they kind of missed out on a couple of things. They would have gained a lot more other things that maybe other kids didn't get, but they also missed out on a couple of things as well. And you only know looking back, of course, because there's nothing worse than maybe you can't even be there for your children. Maybe you're separated. This is for you. Okay, or maybe you were absent. You were there, but your head was somewhere else. Maybe that was you. I don't know. Maybe you're going through it now. Maybe you're like me, you've come out the other end and you can learn from your mistakes. But one thing I did well, okay, so no matter what your situation is, okay, whether you're a single dad, whether you don't get to see your kids, maybe you can just talk to them on the phone, or maybe you're with them all the time, but you're struggling to connect. Okay, like let's be real here, or maybe you have your kids every other weekend and you run out of things to talk about. You run out of things to communicate. I hear that with all the men, particularly the going through a man alive experience. I do hear that, in that program. So this is for you. This is for all of us, okay? So this is something that I've done over the years, and I did it. So I was very fortunate. My dad, absolutely amazing. Hey, he got stuff, same as I got stuff, same as you got stuff. Nobody's perfect, but one of the things that my dad did that was absolutely extraordinary, that I started doing before I realized what I was doing. See, he would start to tell me stories when he was young. He would start to tell me stories about his father, his grandfather. I heard so many stories about his grandfather, his grandparents, his cousins, different family members. Even like my mum, she was one of 7 kids. My grandmother Ursula, the old boy, Arthur, the Milligan side. There's so many stories that I sort of started to pick up. So when I started to have my own kids, that's one of the things that I started to actually do, was to tell them stories of my parents, their grandparents. I started to tell them stories of when I was a kid, and my dad would tell me these stories and different things we were doing, different businesses, and even my dad used to buy and sell a lot of things. My mum from their home, from their farm. Cattle and chickens and eggs, and build stuff, fences and sheds, and all these stories that my dad would tell me, I started telling my children. So what that did was, you could see their eyes light up. They're fascinated with all these stories. They say, tell me more, tell me about this. And I tell you, over the years, that has been the most amazing thing that I've been able to actually, and this is the thing where you can actually change your child's life by actually pointing out the good things that are in them, the stuff that they've inherited, which is their DNA, which is gold. I remember one time, my dad saying to me, nobody is as tough as we are. You're a top. You're the spit out of my mouth. And I know I'm exactly like my dad. Like in so many ways, man. And look, I knew that as a teenager, as a young bloke. So whatever he said to me, I just believed it. Because I know I'm exactly like him. So I mean, so many fathers are focused on the other things, but we've got a wealth of stories that we can get. And sometimes maybe if you haven't, there's research you can do. You can ask members of your family. You can draw on different things. This is where being a father, this is where we can actually start to father our children by doing these things, by actually getting stories, and then of course creating new stories, new experiences. I mean, I've just been in Europe in 2023. I went to Europe, been in Europe for 2 years, a bit over 2 years. And doing different things, going to different places together, creating new experiences, going back to, my wife, her family in Malta, they have a couple bits of real estate there. One of the homes is 430 years old. Their grandfather was born in that house. My wife's grandmother was born in that house. They still live in that house. Other family members, we went there. Multiple times. There was a well in the middle of the house. I wanted my children to drink from that water. I wanted to taste that water. So gentlemen, there's stories we can create, but we can, even if you're separated from, you can write letters, you can talk on the phone, you can email, text me, whatever. You can ask questions. You can tell stories. This is something, gentlemen, that every father can use to actually validate the strength that they see in their children. And that could be the most valuable thing that we actually give them, because life's hard. It's not fair. There's an enemy that is coming at our children through our phones, with all this negative junk that's on the news. There's all these things that are coming against our children. But you could be the one that actually speaks hope, speaks life, speaks a vision. When we talk about the protector, the provider, the king, the priest, the prophet, you can prophesy over their future. You could be the one that sets them up for their life. This is something, gentlemen, we cannot delegate. We cannot delegate it to a teacher or to anybody, But this is the other thing, okay? I honestly believe in my heart, I've felt it, right? I've fathered other men. And in this particular way that I'm talking about, I can see the strength inside other men. I can hear them tell stories. I can ask questions. Say, man, I can see that in you. There's more in you than what you're. There's more in you than what you're bringing to the table here, mate. There's more in you, and sometimes that's all men need is just. They're looking for the opportunity to step up, where you could be that. Maybe you've got an apprentice. Maybe you've got people who work for you or with you. Maybe they're young. Maybe they didn't have that man that actually pointed out the good stuff. Maybe their dad, maybe nobody fathered their father. Have you thought about that? We can't hold anything against anyone. So you could be that man today for somebody. You can change somebody's life today. And I would even say this, we've got a hard copy, but I've got an ebook. I'll get a link put in. This is the Man Alive ebook. 21 stories with small actions. You could do this with your sons. You could take this to work. I mean, it's an ebook. You're going to get it on your phone or your computer. It's a short story. It'll take you 5 minutes a day to read, okay? And then there'll be a task or an action. So if you do this with maybe somebody who's working for you or with you, so I said your son, man, through these 21 days, it could be the thing that validates them to go to the next level.